You know what time it is, y'all. Carter made a video, and now I am inspired to rant on my own. Feedback. This is one of the most important skills that I think somebody could learn in their life. Not only being able to receive feedback, but also to be able to give good feedback. As teacher, I've had experiences with friends who also started teaching, and they were like, it takes me all my brain power just to tell the kids what to say. And this is a very active process. I think it's gotten easier with LLMs nowadays that when in your speech, like actually learning to do prompt engineering is frankly the same thing as learning to teach someone or make an ask. Like if you are a manager and you have no clue what the people are actually asking of you, I'm like, that sucks. So I'm saying feedback is a very general term just to like layer communication. But needless to say, you need to make yourself clear. You need to make yourself heard, right? Like at least understood. And you also want a very clear, bona fide ask. And when it comes to feedback, this ask is a critique. It's telling somebody to change something about themselves in order to make it so you guys can better accomplish your goal. And if your goal is not well defined, then your feedback's not going to be well defined either. So, great example of this is in my research. I was working on a research proposal, and I had been running through it like multiple different times, and it seemed to never be able to make my group happy. But it's because I had no direction after each time they told me that okay, we need to change the proposal. I just wasn't told how I should change it. It's like, what do you dislike about it? Now, a good example of this is during my research, I was told, like, okay, hey, these sources aren't really well defined, and I don't know how much they support our proposal, which generally meant change the sources or actually do lit review, which is something which I didn't do personally. And I started verifying the sources from then on and also asking for citations and proper information. So it is something that you have to actively think about where sure someone's going to necessarily give you feedback and it's always going to be proactive, whereas proactive being defined as somebody gives you information and it directly helps you, like they're telling you what to do, they already know the answer. Like sometimes they don't know the answer, but it is much easier to diagnose problems, and that also needs to be done very well. Like, okay, hey, this isn't working, I don't really know why it's not working, but it is a form of feedback even if it's not the most beneficial towards you, the practitioner. But that's why I'm an advocate for managers. And if you are a manager, like a product manager, very common role in computer science, you need to be able to at least understand what your devs need to do, even if you personally don't understand how to do it. And that's going into clear ass. And then in terms of feedback, you need to learn how to receive it. I talked about this a little bit in my failure video, but if you are just like super hard assed, and like maybe you are right, but if somebody is giving you feedback and you just refuse to listen to it, they're gonna continue to be unhappy, especially if they're your manager, and you are not gonna get anything out of it because they're gonna not be happy, and you are just gonna keep going back and forth, back and forth. You're staying in your ways, the manager's staying in their ways. Like maybe you can give them feedback, make them try to see your side, but generally speaking, if there's a position of authority, if there's power dynamics at play, you need to listen. And feedback, yes, it is a critique on you and your actions, and that's a personal part about it. The part that should hurt is the fact that you don't want to fail again, right? You don't want to have to get more feedback because you want to be successful after the first round of feedback. But getting more feedback isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like constraints might change. I know that it still exists in the corporate world where people like don't do great ass, and you just keep getting more random stuff to do, or people don't define the prerequisites in a meeting for whatever reason. And then once you actually start developing the thing, people are like, oh, you know what? Oh, whoops. There's all these things that we had to do that we didn't talk about before, which is genuinely terrible. Actually, terrible communication. But at least in terms of feedback, you need to be comfortable failing. That doesn't mean that you're going to want failure. You're going to probably be unhappy or sad about it because you don't want to continue failing. But you do need to be able to fail and not like break down, and it's so personal. It's an attack on me and my character, and I need to change so many things, and I hate doing what other people tell me to do. Like no one really likes getting told what to do, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't internalize feedback and have to actually grow and develop from it. So just to recap, the first part of feedback is actually accepting it, internalizing it, and making it actionable. I think actually thinking about the feedback and being like, okay, I can grow from this, or there's something that I can gain from this feedback, even if the feedback sucks, like what your homies might tell you after a breakup, you should still use that feedback in some way, shape, or form, right? Like get something good out of the information that people are giving you. Just get good stuff out of information in general. And then the other half of that is giving good feedback. If a really bad example of this was also my research, but this is from one of our program instructors where he just didn't know what he was talking about. Like on one hand he was like, no, definitely do this, and then suddenly he was like, you know what, you could be able to do this. It's First of all, if you give feedback, you need to be right. You need to show you care, because the majority of the time it's not gonna be you talking to your homeboy about like their breakup. It's gonna be like, okay, I need you to develop this thing, I need you to work on this, and it needs to be clear what you actually want out of that thing that is being worked on. Or if you have a critique for someone, like, hey, we can't say this, like that's very explicit, but you need preventative action. You need to actually think, okay, there's more ways. Oh wow, I'm very mucusy. That you can work around this. It's like, it's not only you don't want somebody not saying the F word in the workplace. You don't want somebody cussing at all, right? You just can't have that happen if you are a teacher, if you're an educator. When I talk to my kids, I tell them, I'm like, I'm not gonna cover every single possible base, but I'm gonna tell you what you can and cannot do. And beyond that, it's like common sense. Like I tell them, like, you can. There's no use of profanity. Let's be nice to our other classmates. Let's collaborate. Let's share the resources. Let's share the materials. And some kids will still like be like, okay, you get one popsicle stick, and everyone else, and I'm gonna get the hot glue gun, and this person's gonna get no tape. I'll manage all adhesives, and that's just deeply unfair. All right, so that is something which you will have to manage as an individual. It's like, oh, I did tell you guys to share, but I didn't tell you guys how to share how much. I did say no profanity, but I didn't say no acronyms. So people are going to, give them an inch, they're going to take a mile type stuff. If you tell somebody a certain rule, they're going to find a workaround and actively try to destroy you. And which, like, you can feel a certain way about that. I'm like, it's just a natural part of the world. It's like, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's, like, good for you, Like even if you enable somebody to do something, doesn't mean that they should. Like alcohol and like marijuana, like it's legal, but it didn't take away any of the potential harmful side effects. It's still there. Like and at a very like, so like do it responsibly, right? And that's why we have things like Alcoholics Anonymous and addiction and rehab centers, because people can still mess themselves up just because it's illegal. Like just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's right. Like gerrymandering. So, wow, I really got off topic again, but feedback. It is like the crux. It's how you manage your life, right? Feedback isn't exclusive to like the workplace, even though like that's pretty fair. It's also a representation of you. Like there's a lot of people out there that want very ungenuine friendships, and they just don't want to actually like have to talk to people or think about themselves and live in this mesh. And while I agree, you don't want to have to work on yourself 24/7. Like that's a burdensome task. Like you should value people who want to see the best out of you, and that means that you guys are like, I don't even know what they're called, but the things that you sharpen knives with, not the grinder. I don't know, but those people are there to keep you straight, keep you in line. Like, you should value people that keep you accountable and that genuinely want the best for you. And that means that like instead of talking behind their back and like sharpening their judgment against other people, that means like they might talk shit to your face, but that is important feedback, and they're telling you that you're doing something right or wrong. I have a good story that I'm going to tell, but it was about me just getting absolutely ragged on by association, and it didn't happen to other people. They didn't make it fair, but they made it very clear to me that these people did not value me or me as an individual, myself. They didn't care about what I had to say. They didn't care if I did something wrong. They cared about more about what people thought of me than what they knew of me, which is crazy to me. But that was feedback on them and their character. It reflected their values and what they cared about. And I think that that's still useful. So, not only, I don't know if you guys ever referred to like if you punch a wall and it hurts your hand, someone might call it feedback. Like that. There's so many ways to get feedback, and it's honestly just information and communication, inference, whatever you want to call it. But there are so many ways to get information in the world. Do something with it, and internalize the those ideas. Internalize what people are pushing out to you. If somebody's giving you feedback, you don't have to internalize it, but you can recognize that they're giving you feedback for a reason, whether or not they are justified or not. And yeah, and try to be careful of that logical fallacy. It's like if you see a fat person talking to you about weight loss, you're like, what do you know? You're fat. But they could still be right, even if they don't practice it itself. I think this channel is a great example of that, where I did not take great care of my health or myself in order to make this challenge work. I am very loaded up on commitments in college, but I still might talk about things like burnout or like relationships, and I've not had a single successful relationship, but you can still learn from my failures. Right? I'm not gonna tell you how to get married. I wouldn't know, but I can tell you what worked in a relationship and what didn't work in a relationship, and what I might value as an individual, even if that wasn't in what you might consider traditional success. And I think that we should work around that with feedback too. Like, sure, someone might not be justified in giving feedback, but you can still gain something from it, even if it means actively working against the person. It's not the blind, oh, this person told me this thing, I'm just gonna always work against them to prove them wrong. Like, no, it's it's gonna be like, maybe this person is absolutely terrible and a jackass, but they're low-key right. Like, I should sleep and take care of myself. Or maybe this person is super well justified and vindicated, but they just happen to be wrong about this particular thing. Like, of course, there's power dynamics at play. You judge people and their character and the validity of their information, and sometimes they make an inference, a guess, and you don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. And you use their success as an individual as a metric to determine whether or not that's the best thing for you. But you live your own life and take things with a grain of salt. There's a good post out there by Carter. I love Carter. And he talks about how the majority of people who, like, he hosted the NVIDIA's Founders Hackathon, and it was a hackathon, but he went to Georgia Tech, and he didn't do a hackathon, like a single one, when he was all the way through college, and he has what you might consider success, but the way that he attained it was not, it may not be the same way that you might find success in your life. And that's important to note. Like, yes, you can mirror people's lives and what they do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way to go about things, or that you're going to get the same success that somebody else got by exactly following in their footsteps. And that's why people, when they look back at their careers and you're looking at people who are doing stuff that you might value, like, oh man, I wish I was working at NVIDIA, they might give you advice that varies from what they personally did, which might intuitively make no sense, but that almost is everything to say that the thing that people can learn from experiences, good and bad, and they can still find success and wish they did things that were better. This was a very common thing in soccer, at least for me, where like we would win, but we would low-key play like shit, and then our coach would get hella mad at us, and then our team would like be all pissy. We'd be like, why is he like still giving us shit when we won? But winning is not the end. Like, winners don't stay on top by just caring about winning. They stay on top by not only winning, but then looking at that winning footage and seeing what they can do better. Because everybody is going to be looking at you, seeing how they can break you apart, seeing how they can tear you apart, which means you need to always be one step ahead. And that's just called being proactive, right? That's me when you say no profanity and no acronyms now when I do my classes. And it's just something that you have to think about. It's a part of life. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, that is my crash out on feedback. It's only about 30 seconds left of the footage, so I'm going to let it ride out. But it is so important because it honestly is just the communication of ideas. And try to reframe your mind to be like, okay, I don't want to actively seek more failure, but I do not want to fail. And you can use that feedback as a medium to get there. And also, you don't have to internalize all feedback that you get, as in like it's a personal attack on me, or I need to make this actionable, I need to do this feedback. Unless it's your job, then it sucks for you. Like, you have free will, and not everybody knows better than you. So take things with a grain of salt. Only internalize what you also believe in. Okay, bye bye.